formed in a dream, kept in a thought, carried across oceans, spoken in whispers, passed down from elders, planted in gardens of okra, prayed for in sanctuary, resisted with fury, protected with faith, created with love, born into being, from root to bone. You are here.
This podcast talks about colonial, racial, and gender-based violence. Please listen at your own pace and capacity. And remember to do what you need to do to care for yourself if you feel activated by this content. Should you need resources, please check out our section on resources at decolonizingtherapy.com. Be well. Greetings, my good people, and welcome to Season 2 of From Root to Bone podcast with me, your host, Dr. Jen. From Root to Bone is a podcast for folks, hopefully like you, who are very likely parched, primed, poised, and ready, honey, to rehydrate our souls and do some unlearning together. It's a place where I get to unlock the gates and have some real-ass conversations with some of my favorite people, elders, teachers, intellectual crushes, folks doing the real-ass work towards reclaiming the juiciest parts of ourselves and our ancestries, our histories, and our collective health and liberation. I'm Dr. Jen, lovingly known as the Rage Doctor, founder and mother of Decolonizing Therapy. And my goal in life, or one of them, I think I have many at this point, or rather I'm breaking up with goals. But part of what I love to do in the world is help people realize these aspects of themselves that they once felt were too much, too messy, not enough. I love and I feel very drawn to people that are often in between spaces, in between portals, kind of straddling paradoxes onto themselves. And I find that that is often the work, in my humble, loving opinion, that so many of us crave, especially as we're in the midst of pretty vast, global, energetic collapse. I also believe along with that collapse, we are in a place of massive reclamation, massive rebuilding. We're in a place of figuring out what our threshold is, whether we're walking through it, whether we've just like thrown ourselves over that race line, whether we're bringing others with us past and into these new realms and thresholds, and what we want to lay down, what roots we want to lay down. So hence, from root to bone, we like to get into it from root to bone. And this season is all about the marrow. Yeah, wink, wink. And I do want to say, I don't think I've said this before this season. When I think about the marrow and I think about my ancestry and I think about my people, I grew up with with a lot, so any vegetarians and vegans that are, and I'm an animal lover, let me just say, are gonna like cringe, so like cover your ears. But I grew up with my elders and my mother like literally sucking they would say the nutrients, like the marrow out of a thing. And my mom, my grandfather, everybody would say like, this is where it's at. Right, like this is why my grandfather would tap his chest and be like, "This is why I don't get sick." And then he would proceed to like this sucking, intense sound from the bone. And I, quite Americanized, quite like embarrassed at that time to connect with other aspects of my culture because my family was working so hard to try to get us to like fit in. And just acculturate, assimilate, not cause problems, keep your head down and study. I was just so grossed out by it. So allow me to say on this beautiful final episode of the season with our final fave, everyone is my fave, but Renee is my fave guest. I'm really, really, really excited to introduce our guest for this next hour, Renee Sills. So
Thank
like,
you,
thank
Dr.
you.
Jen.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you. So, okay. So continue to receive, Renee. I'm going to chat a little bit longer as I introduce Renee, read a little bit of something that they've written, and tell you a little bit about my first interactions. And I also need to say that I met Tribble through Renee because I remember meeting up with Renee. I think it was like 2024 when you were visiting in New York.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna do a podcast. I don't know. I need to talk. Da, 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 da. And as a really good Virgo rising, and, and many, many Virgo-y things we'll get into in my chart, in my first house, I overthink quite a bit. Quite a bit. Quite a bit. Kind of just overthink everything perpetually until I get sick of my own overthoughts and then take action. And Renee's like, oh, wait, I think I have the person for you. And I feel like Renee is always in my life, like right in time, right
Mm.
on time. I remember having the absolute freaking privilege to be on the Embodied Astrology podcast. We were kind of talking about many moons ago,
Mhm.
prior to the pandemic, and getting to walk amongst the trees with Renee in Portland. Yeah.
Mhm.
And, sharing tea and sharing a meal. And I just have to say, receiving readings. I just want to say that you're one of my favorite people on this
Mm.
multiverse.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I see you, my fellow Venus and Virgo.
It feels good to be seen. Thank you.
And also, before I get into, some of the bio and the reading, I believe that Tribble, our podcast producer, and Renee have the same birthday. Yeah?
I believe we do. Yeah, we're birthday twins.
Like I kind of love, all of this synchronistic synergy, and it feels really right, and it feels very full circle. So thank you for being one of the reasons why I'm here, why I
Mm.
do the work that I do, and for pushing me forward and reminding me a little bit about my Uranus placements and like, yeah, 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 you stir shit up, Jen, and like, thank you for seeing me as
Mm.
well too.
Mm.
So folks, Renee Sills is an astrologer, somatic educator, artist, and founder of Embodied Astrology, a podcast and emergent collective learning space that centers embodied intersectional approaches to astrology, intuition, and divination. Yes, love that. The through lines of their work are investigations of interrelatedness, spirituality, mindfulness, creative agency, and adaptive processes of human bodies and consciousness in times of apocalypse. Letting that sit for a second. Renee's work weaves together and between realms of mysticism, bodywork, healing ritual, and participatory art. Welcome. And so, as I was thinking about you and what I wanted to place on this virtual altar of ours, honestly, what kept coming up, and at first I kept thinking, like, this is too simple. Renee deserves, like, this is too simple. And I'm like, wait, what is simple about selenite, right? What is simple about selenite? For me, and all my like beloved crystal people don't come for me. This is like just Jen's perspective, but it is like an ultimate cleanser, like a palette cleanser. I do place my selenite outside during beloved like full moons, and that's how I cleanse. I do a little bit of smoky sage, but even like my tourmalines and things like that are always placed on top of my selenite as a way to constantly, yeah, like palette cleanse. I don't know. That's just what it feels like to me. Even sometimes if I need a little like, ooh, what am I feeling here? And I might hold it close or run it past and I also do that for my beloved goddess cat Isis. And she really likes it. And she likes to sit on this little selenite piece and put her little paws on there. I wish she would do it now, but she won't. So for me, Renee, there is something about your energy, your poise, your presence, the way that you choose to articulate, especially in my humble opinion, when you're in that channeling artist state of talking about, your astrology and your kind of embodying, I think, pieces of us and our chart and charts, and that you're reading for us. And maybe you're not, but that's what it feels like for me. Feels like this channeling embodiment. And there's something about it every time I walk away, whether I'm in one of your workshops or listening or I'm receiving a reading, where I'm feeling like, I feel better. Like I feel lighter and I feel more me. And so I respectfully and humbly place beloved pieces of selenite onto our virtual altar. And so I'm going to read a little bit from the mouth of babes from Renee Sills, and then we will give an official welcome to Renee. Who you are in your totality will never be truly known. There will be moments of sensing what vastness you might be, but those moments are fleeting. And besides, your vastness is not meant to be articulated. Your wholeness began with the becoming of you from the beginnings of your becoming. Can you even imagine it? Just try. Try to include everything that has participated in your forming. You're absorbent and healing and terrifying and profoundly beautiful. Don't forget. What you think you are now will change. It's already changed since reading the last few words. You are fluctuating, tidal, evaporations, condensations, showers, pools, waves, steam. At this moment in your evolution, you hold the weight of the world's grief. At this moment in your evolution, you must try to remember what has been lost. At this moment in your evolution, you are dreaming a new dream. At this moment in your evolution, you're considering how death will give way to birth. At this moment in your evolution, it might be easy to confuse yourself for something else. Someone solid and ambitious and temporary. At this moment in your evolution, that confusion is suffering. At this moment in your evolution, even though you can never know how whole you are, you must try with every ounce of your being to include yourself. Try to imagine what love would feel like if it was textural. How would it rest on your skin? How would it float in your veins? How would it dispel through your lips? How? Thank you. I feel like we need to give a few seconds here to let that literally wash through us. And this was from a post from the archives, so thank you, Renee, written for the Pisces full moon in 2019. Ooh, why did you choose? I'm like interested, I'm intrigued. I'm like, yes, why did we go into this one? I love this. I think I want to like read it at my shrine every morning. It feels like such a like an incantation and a welcoming and a remembering. Renee Sills, welcome.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you here. How did it feel to receive a little bit?
It felt like you were I'm forgetting the name of what this gesture is, when it's not quite a baptism, but when someone pours water over your head, as a blessing. That's what I felt.
Mm, thank you. I love that. So, hmm, like, where should we? Is there something that you brought forth that you'd like to place on our virtual altar for us and the peoples?
Yes. Um, I brought this owl. This is a little owl of Athena. So the goddess of wisdom and a symbol of um, intellect and wisdom, but also intuition and the discernment that's required to see through the dark and navigate the shadows and the unseen realms of knowledge. And it's a protector spirit for me, and one that really anchors and roots me in what I feel are some of the deeper lineages of my practice and craft that have to do with deep goddess energy, earth energy, animist energy. Hmm.
Mm, I love Athena. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you. So I have a question. When did young Renee start playing with the mystical, the magical, the astrological, or was this always?
It was always, and it started playing with me right from the beginning. Um, I'm a second generation astrologer, and my mother had begun her practice about 15 years before I arrived. And when I arrived, that's how she met me. And my godmother attended her birth, or my birth, her labor. Um, and the two of them, they were colleagues in astrology and mysticism and healing. They had started a wild crafting herbal medicine company that also worked with astrology. They were both body workers. And I feel that in a lot of ways, my godmother is my other parent, one who raised me a little bit more and more lovingly than my father. And they welcomed me into the world and they welcomed me with astrology. I had my first natal chart reading probably within the first weeks of my life. And
Yeah.
throughout my childhood, it was always a language that was circulating in our household and in our conversations. And it was a language that was presented to me as a reason for why things were the way that they were and why people are the way that they are. And um, it was a way that we navigated conflict and difference. And so, as a kid, when I'd get upset with, my friends or other kids for, having different opinions or whatever, I'm a double Leo, right? So I'm opinionated. I get
We
kind
love
of
it. We love
cranky
it.
about something. And, my mom would just very patiently be like, oh, well, let's consider what their sign is. And let's talk about you being a very fixed person, a double Leo, Taurus moon. And, can you feel right now how stubborn you are?
Yes, mom. Yes, mom.
And yeah, magic and ritual were always part of our lives. There was always invocation of the unseen. My mother self-identified as a witch and was, reclaiming her own pagan and Wiccan roots and, learning to reconnect with the earth and learning to reconnect as a healer. And so that was just always there. And I didn't even realize that it was there until I started to realize that it wasn't there for other people. It was just part of what my normal was.
Mm, mm. I feel like for all these years, I'm always learning new tidbits, and I love that about you. I love like a little cat landing on my feet and learning something else about you, and then coming over here, curling up. It's really beautiful, and I'm just like intrigued, and I wonder if other folks listening, I think they are. What other kind of what other ways did astrology pop up in your raising and rearing? And like, what was mom signs? And wait, I should probably also, and as you answer that, what's also coming up into my mind is for someone who is super new to this, what is astrology? And I know that's a massive question. Is that like, what is astrology? And then, yeah, a little story.
Okay. Um, So, astrology is a practice that has accompanied humankind since the dawn of civilization and probably before. Some of the earliest artifacts that have been found that people made were graphic depictions of lunar cycles. The lunar cycle is the original calendar, and astrology is a way that human beings have known how to keep time forever. At its core and in its most basic form, it is a recognition that there are cycles and seasons that are happening here on Earth and in relationship to the luminaries, to the sun and the moon, to the stars and the constellations, and also to the planets.
Mm.
And astrology is deeply practical and inherently embodied, and it is a way that people have organized and oriented around cyclical and seasonal growth and have come to observe patterns in nature. You know, certain times are good for certain things. And one of my favorite things to say about um, about time and about astrology is that every time is a good time if you know what the time is good for.
Mm.
And that is the practice of astrology is what is this time good for?
What's
And
this time?
so astrology has been practiced all over the world. It has emerged in multiple civilizations and societies. There are different iterations and syncretizations of astrology. Um, Mayan astrology, Chinese astrology, Vedic astrology, Western astrology, which is the astrology that I was born and raised with and have primarily studied, is a syncretic practice. And it is anchored and rooted in traditions that are also part of Vedic astrology and Chinese astrology and Islamic astrology. And so, my experience with astrologers in general is that we are uh, ravenously curious and really excitable and we want to know why, and we are people who ask big questions and we love to get the big view. You know, we're sky watchers.
Mm.
um, and this type of energy really likes to share, and it also likes to philosophize, you know, and storytell. And across time, astrologers have collaborated and worked together. Astrology as a practice has at times been very supported by forms of governance or different, you know, royalties or reigns of power. And then at other times it has had to go underground, and astrologers have been persecuted, and the knowledge has not stopped. So when it goes underground, it just moves. And so that's part of how it has really become syncretic.
Mm.
Um, and you know, astrology is something that a lot of people practice in also very different ways. And so it is a lot of things. It can be predictive, it can be healing, it can be deeply psychological, it can be really silly and playful. And it's evolving, you know, and in a lot of ways, astrology is the poetic, playful other half of astronomy. And
Mm.
at least in Western culture, astronomy and astrology got split apart during the Cartesian split, and
Mm.
this kind of age of reason that said that everything that's mystical is not real, right? And that what we uh, don't think that we can perceive with our eyes or, you know, with our five senses, and we have so many more senses than that, just isn't real, right? And so if we can't observe it and repeat it in exactly the same way, then it doesn't exist. And so there has been a split between astronomy and astrology in Western culture, but that's not true everywhere. And so, like in Vedic astrology, for example, astronomy and astrology are still the same thing, right? And so we're watching the sky, we're calculating the movement of the planets, of the constellations, we're considering how the galaxy is swirling, right? How our solar system is rotating around its own axis, how our solar system is part of a galactic arm also rotating around its own center, how that galaxy is also one of many
Woo!
galaxies rotating around a center.
Yeah.
And this is ancient knowledge.
Mm.
And there is so much poetry in it and so much symbolism in it. And so astrology is the part of the practice of attunement with the cosmos that is about telling stories and making meaning out of symbols.
Attunement with the cosmos. that is a practice. Wait. Attunement of the cosmos. It is about telling stories and making meaning out of symbols. I just needed to, I just really, all of that was fucking gorgeous. I'm like, wait, I wanted to like learn my little nerdy side is like, okay, teach a class, go. And you do teach classes, no?
Yes.
Like all the
Yes.
time. Tell us
Mhm.
about that.
Well, so the practice that I work with, that I call embodied astrology, is a somatic orientation to astrology. So it is a body-based understanding of astrology. And this is also ancient. And so within many schools of astrology, there is a medical component because there is an understanding that we are made of the cosmos and the same stuff that makes all life on Earth lives in our bodies. And so astrological symbolism has a deeply embodied application. And there are practices of medical astrology that have to do with diagnosis and treatment through astrology. And that is something that I've studied, but that's not what I practice. So my background, along with being a second generation astrologer, is also includes being a somatic practitioner from a very early age. And so one of the many gifts that my mother, her name is Dee, or was Dee, she's now in spirit. But one of the many gifts that she gave to me through astrology and through working with my chart was a recognition that um, I was not a good candidate for public school. I hated it. I didn't go. I was very rebellious, um, beginning in my early adolescence. And so using my astrology and really thinking about my chart, she helped me leave the public school system at 12 years old and move into an unschooling experience. And her condition for that was that I study with a dance therapist. And so, beginning at 12, I became an apprentice to a woman named Melissa Michaels, who is within the lineage of Gabrielle Roth and other forms of dance and art and creative therapies. And I studied with Melissa for about 10 years. During that time, I encountered a lot of other somatic practitioners. At the end of my study with her, I became really curious about yoga and, in particular, ancient forms of Vedic mysticism. That's when I started to make the connection between astrology, which I'd grown up with, and the body. And that's when I started to really take up my own study of astrology in my late teens and early 20s. But I was really focused on somatic practice. So I trained in yoga and yoga therapy and therapeutic rehabilitation for about 15 years. I was a yoga teacher and trainer for a long time. That led me to the work of body mind centering, Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen's work. I went through their practitioner program that led me to cranial sacral and other types of energetic healing practices. Yeah, that has all come into a form of synthesis in me that is very much about embodied practice and inner body meditation and visualization that is cued with astrology. And so I think about astrology as a somatic score. And every Monday, I lead a class. Every moon day, I lead a class called Somatic Space, where we tune in with the transits and the current astrology of the upcoming week as a somatic score. And so I devise a score that is movement-based, meditation, visualization. It's very gentle, typically. It includes energy medicine practices, qigong, yoga, dance, and whatever creative gestural kind of thing is coming through me that week. Um, so that happens weekly. I teach a practitioner program about once every 2 years. And those cohorts are pretty long. They're between a year and a year and a half long. And I teach workshops occasionally, and they come and go seasonally with my interests. And yeah, I love teaching. I think of it more as really an opportunity for me to keep practicing and learning. Um, yeah, people who get to teach are so lucky because it's really the best way to learn.
It is, right? About yourself, about what people need. How I also find that the body, the mind, the spirit changes, that
Hmm.
there's like a constant changing and an evolution of people as a collective. And I find that like last year I didn't teach as much. I spoke, but I realized like, wait, I'm not in it. Like I'm not in this teaching,
Yeah.
movement dance. And I really missed being there, and I missed what I was learning about myself
Hmm.
and how I felt. Is it like that for you too?
Totally. Yeah, it really feeds me. It gives me a reason, to continue to learn.
Yeah.
And it al- it always happens that I learn through the transmission, but I also learn in the afterwards when I'm dissatisfied with what came through me because I also have Virgo placements, right? Venus, Mercury, and Virgo. And so afterwards, there will always be something where I'm like, well, I kind of disagree with that, or I didn't quite articulate that in the way that I wanted to, or oh, I wish we had done this. And there was a long time in my practice where I would feel bad about it, but now I get really excited when I have those types of feelings because I know I get to come back next week. And
Mm,
so that ability to try things out in iterative, kind of repetitive, ongoing ways, and
yeah.
then reflect on it, especially in community and with people who I get to know over time, is really incredible. And because the way that I teach is primarily experiential, it's not didactic. I'm not necessarily trying to give people a whole lot of information. What I'm doing is trying to create a container and instigate or inspire experiential curiosity and sensational awareness. Then what happens is that everybody is a teacher in the space.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of first person testimony that builds our collective knowledge around what astrology can be in this particular moment or towards this
Mm,
particular idea.
that's beautiful. You, a lot of what you said piqued my little interest, felt like a little meerkat. But one of the first things was this beautiful process you mentioned of, I'm going to summarize in my words, if that's okay. I'm not going to do it justice, but this like internal critique, like, I could have done that differently. That didn't go quite the way I needed it to. That didn't land. I didn't explain that the way that I needed. But it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have begun to like also expand your capacity to hold that nuance, right? Because I hear from, and I am a person that I hear from people, but I also am a person that has to constantly contend with my thoughts, my inner dialogue.
Totally.
Right?
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah, right, right. And I find that this is something that fascinates me, like along with wanting to know people's morning routines. Don't know why, I just do as like a very neurospicy person, but I'm also fascinated with how we swim through, or for some of us trudge through, or for some of us ignore, or numb out to that which feels like could have been different. That little, that inner critic and dialogue, because that is such a part of my world in such a really real way. And lately, the reason I'm bringing this up too is lately, folks that I'm engaging with are sort of like, this voice, this internal dialogue. It feels more intense than ever. And my response generally is like, yeah, well, of course it is. Right? Like a lot of our macro, a lot of our external is also reflecting consciously or not, directly or not, in my humble opinion, that we're not worthy, or we haven't
Mm,
gotten it right. It's not
mm,
right currently. This soup, it's not it, a lot of us,
mhm,
for a lot of us, and has not been it for a lot of us. But I am very interested in that way with that also psychological piece. And what you and many other brilliant people bring is also this astrological piece to me, which is for me celestial, like beyond the macro, very galactic also. And I was a kid that I was clear I was going to be an astronomer. Then I was going to be a veterinarian.
mm.
But I was going to be an astronomer.
I
Like,
love that.
and then I was like, oh, math.
Mm,
Oh, That was a little bit of a like, oh. And I
Mm,
don't believe that anybody in my world, I don't believe anybody in my world, my life, was speaking about astrology.
mm.
Like people in my life were not speaking about astrology. That wasn't even on my, like, not even as a teenager. Like that was not even a possibility. I didn't, other than the newspaper.
Right.
And it's like, Cancer, I'm a Cancer, read that. And I was intrigued. But so there's these two things I know that I'm bringing here into this, and it's like kind of funneling both ways. And one is how do you think that you've been able to work those beautiful muscles into allowing yourself to say, oh yeah, I get to be here with what I think could be different, could have been different, should have been different, and without, well, I'm putting a projection here, without ruminating on it for a whole week. I'm going to allow myself to grow in this, to be in
Mm.
this, and I just can't help but wonder if the body has something to do with that. I don't know if you have any thoughts around that. Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts on that. Yeah. Yeah. When you were talking, I'm thinking about that website and document. I think, is it Tema Okun, The Cultural Characteristics of White Supremacy? And the need to be right, right, is one of them. And this idea that there is a right, that there is a right and that there's a wrong, and that we could at any point, get something that is without fault, right? Like at any point that we could reach a goal and then never have to move forward from that is so
Hmm.
reductive. It's such an
Hmm.
oppressive worldview and way of treating each other and ourselves. And for me, a lot of my um, growing capacity to be with my own ongoing evolution is also my healing and deconditioning and unwinding from white supremacy culture. And it is a whole ass body state. When I feel like I've gotten something wrong and I should have gotten it right, I clench in my inner body, my jaw is tight, my gut is tight, my whole world collapses in. I become narcissistic in that moment. All I can think about is myself and what I did or didn't do, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it completely shuts down my capacity to be relational and to learn and to enjoy whatever the experience could be in whatever it was that I did or didn't do. And so I guess for me, there's something about, really orienting towards what I feel I can participate with in a larger moment of cultural necessity for healing. And in my role as a teacher, I feel that I have power to be a possibility model of not needing to get it right and also not needing to be the authority and getting to learn in public and getting to be humble in what it is that I'm presenting, and also getting to change my mind about things and change how I word things and change how I practice things and hold space for many different voices to be there. And I have South Node in Sagittarius, North Node in Gemini. That might be part of it. I feel like I started teaching very young, and I came from lifetimes of, really having a strong opinion and, being a teacher of some kind. It's very natural for me. But in this lifetime, I feel a very strong aversion and deep mistrust to hierarchical models of knowledge and to, these kind of singular guru, ultimate authority figures.
Yes.
Yeah, feel that they're very damaging, and that they don't build resilient, strong communities or minds or hearts or relationships. Um, so it feels like a joyful practice for me, when I am having that experience. And it does it does feel like an opportunity for my body to be nature, which it is. And nature is constantly refining its forms. It's constantly iterating. It's like things are happening, right? Roots are going down and hitting a wall, or branches are growing in some kind of way that makes them fall off, or, like things are happening all the time that are asymmetrical, that are, completely chaotic. And nature is just absorbing it and doing it again and doing it again and doing it again. And, working with change to continue to evolve. And so is my body, and so is my mind, and so is my
Yeah.
heart.
Yes. Yes. And nature is so giving,
So generous.
right?
Yeah, and so deeply playful. I mean, I think there's also that too. And like if we are learning or teaching and it's not playful, something is wrong.
Yeah.
When, and you talked about math, and I think about how math is taught, and I think there are fantastic math teachers out there who really teach it in very playful ways. Math is, in my opinion, like deeply magical and mystical, and
Mm.
there's so much playfulness in it. But often, how it's taught is really serious and dry and boring.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a problem,
Yeah.
because playfulness is how human beings access our intelligence.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's how we survive.
It is.
It's like when I was able to be a therapist on like severe trauma units, like partial care hospitalization programs for predominantly children and adolescents. Oftentimes, a caregiver, let's say that there was some horrible situation that occurred on top of environmental structural trauma, racism, dot, dot, dot. But there would be this singular situation that really would maybe place a child in a state where they're not in their body, right? And then maybe some of us that move in this way, like I would be able to see, like, oh, wait, they're not in their body, but I didn't have teachers to describe what was happening. And well, how do you know they're not in their body? They're not dissociating. I'm like, that's not the only word that I would use to describe someone deciding that an event was so much that their spirit needed to just sort of, and sometimes I could see like ancestral team, like, oh,
Mm,
we're going to take them over here for a little bit,
yeah.
you know? And why I'm saying this is because also what would happen is that family members would often say, well, they've just been silent, selectively mute, air quotes, or they've just been urinating, 6 months straight on themselves at various points in the day, no idea why. Why all of a sudden are they playing? Why all of a sudden, like, that feels really weird. Their father just died, or
Mm,
someone just got murdered in front of them. Why are we seeing them play? That feels weird. That feels maniacal. That feels off. That's usually the word, off.
mm.
Something's off. And I would remind them that the body, and especially like a child's mind and nervous system and psychic, intrapsychic capacity is so, I just want to do this like an accordion.
Right.
So like fluid and sinewy and flexible. There you go.
Mm.
Flexible, that there's structure, but it's also flexibility. And like children, play is how they heal. And I would dare say, and listening to you and re-reminding myself, I would dare say that that's probably a bit of how all of us bring a little bit of healing in,
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. And really, I think what we deeply need for cultural healing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Um, and
Yeah,
when,
that
yeah, yeah.
that thing that you did with your hands, that in and out like an accordion is what the universe does, and it's what life does. Like life is always expanding and contracting. And adults in modernity, we have this idea that we're going to it's like now we're solid. And, it's like, this is who I am, and this is what I stand for, and these are my thoughts. And we become calcified inside of our own assumptions about what
Yeah.
is possible and what is impossible. And then we completely thwart our own growth and potentiality, and yeah, really lose the point, I think. And
Yeah.
at that point, you know, entertainment ceases to really nourish the heart in deeply playful ways. In my opinion, it's why people become really fixated on being entertained by violence or something like that. It's like
Mm,
at a certain point, how shut down somebody is,
yeah.
needs a high level of sensation, right, in order to feel anything. But it's because we've lost that ability to go out and come back in, to,
Yeah.
expand, contract, to get interested and excited, and then to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear that in your teaching. Like you've said this before, like the
Hmm.
curiosity for all teachers. And as I say this, and a magnificent hawk is literally gliding back and forth in front of
Yes.
my window. Like, it's like
Yes.
huge. And he's still doing it. Sorry, I'm so in love right now. Okay.
Do you remember you did a workshop on ancestral healing that my partner and I attended? It was a virtual workshop. And while we did a meditation with you, these two hawks were circling our outside, and we both have connections with those birds. And we went outside, and they kept circling while we were listening to your meditation.
Ooh, I love this. This is something for us as well.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that I really dig about you is that, I don't know, I feel like sometimes in conversation with you and sitting with you and talking with you and receiving from you, I feel like a younger self, like little Jen gets to be comfortable and unfurl and
Yay.
and like really funly, sexily nerdy. Like we can both
Yeah. Yeah, Venus and Virgo.
but
Yeah.
like yeah, so okay, so tell us. Okay, I'm gonna jump around a little bit as you know
Mhm.
I'd be doing. So I have so many good questions that I feel like everyone wants to know. So one of the first things is I believe that astrology, all the astrologies are super, super sacred. Like I have very good friends, been there at the South Asian, Punjabi and Gujarati, and they're like, oh, no, 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 we're naming the child yet. Baby just came through. And I'm like, okay, tell me what? We got to talk to our guru. Okay, what does the
Yeah.
guru do? Well, we have to consult and then we have to do, we have to do the chart. Okay. And really understanding how deeply, as you were mentioning, a part of their lives, marriages, alignments,
Hmm.
partnerships, businesses starting, astrology is, it's not separate.
Hmm.
I've come to understand it is deeply cultural. It's part of, it is, and there's probably better ways to say that. And there seems to be this oversaturation and almost a minimizing and a watering down of astrology current day. Like everyone is sort of like, oh yeah, I'm reading this and I'm doing this, and it almost, when something starts to become popular. I don't know
Hmm.
if that makes sense. Like something is popular, and I have found this like when I write or talk about decolonizing and decolonization. So astrology, and I'm generalizing right now, feels like part of the rage.
Mm.
Yeah. And as a person that likes to chew on things before they become really mainstream, sometimes that irritates me.
Hmm.
I'm showing my ass here. And sometimes I tend to be drawn to practices and philosophies and things. I really dive in when I feel that it's something more obscure,
Hmm.
that I'm like kind of digging and burrowing into and learning and understanding. And it is not uncommon to hear someone say, "Ah, what are your top three?" And in some ways, I imagine that's pretty freaking cool and beautiful. And in other ways, I wonder if you, as a second generation practitioner, may also feel like that takes away from some of the depth or understanding. And I just wonder what you think. I'm generalizing, but folks' fascination and interest is, and that increase in the last 10, 15
Hmm.
years, what that might be about for you.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember the first time we did a chart reading for you and talking about, certain aspects of your natal chart where you are a disruptor. And there is this element of your being that has to be pushing the edges of, what is inside of consciousness. And, you're bringing the circumference into the center.
Mm,
And I feel in some ways that I'm similar to that. Um, and my interests are ongoing. And there is a way that how I practice and the synthesis that I try for, and also I would say the non-hierarchical experiential inclusion of, first person testimony group consciousness is very different than how astrology gets presented inside of popular culture.
mm,
And I've felt myself become increasingly averse to trying to practice in the ways that I see it being branded. And we're living at a time when there are celebrity astrologers, and there's a whole aesthetic around astrology.
yeah.
Um, and working on the internet and being self-employed, it's hard to not be in comparison with that and to feel to a certain extent like I need to engage with it. Um, but Yeah, it's interesting. I think that the outer planets, um, so here I'm talking about Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and there are so many more bodies that we could consider in the kind of realm of the outer planets, but those are the ones that I'm really thinking about. Astrologers will talk about how the outer planets are symbols of culture and
Mm,
what is happening in the paradigm of a particular era. And over the last decade plus, Neptune has been in Pisces. And Neptune is a symbol of dreams and mysticism and spirituality, but very much culture as it comes through like art and music and what's influencing our imaginations. And Pisces is a realm that has to do with the mystical and with the occult and with the magical. And it's not the only zodiac sign that relates with astrology as a practice, but it definitely is one of them that really strongly could influence a kind of cultural reemergence of astrology in a popular kind of way. And this is not the first time astrology has been popular. Right. It
mm,
was also popular the last time Neptune was in Pisces. There was a surge in, spiritualism and mediumship and astrology at that time. There have been times when, I've just been fascinated to think about what was life like during the Islamic Golden Age when
mm,
astrology was funded. I mean, really deeply supported by the state, by like the political rulership at the time. And astrologers filled the halls of all kinds of institutions, right? And it was like very much a part of societal kind of prestige and esteem.
mm,
So I think astrology comes and goes in waves of popularity, and every time there's a burst of it, it is going to completely infuse the culture. It's going to change the culture, and it will be changed by the culture at that time. And so we're in a moment where it has surged, and the way that it has surged, in my opinion, is fantastic. Um, it it often isn't deep, like for sure, the meme astrology that like that you're talking about, right? And everybody's like, "Oh, this is my big three," and you have people who put themselves out as astrologers after they've taken like a weekend workshop or studied for a year or something like that. It's not deep. It's shallow astrology, and I think it's still useful. And when I
mm,
think about, some of the celebrity astrologers right now, like I think about how popular Chani Nicholas is and
mhm,
what she has done for Gen Z and millennials and the ways that she's infused politics and like social
mhm,
engagement consciousness into astrology
mhm.
and queerness, that she's a queer femme, celebrity astrologer,
Yeah.
kind of turning people on to thinking about something bigger than themselves that they get to be a part of.
Mm,
I want to bow to her. I think like this is so helpful for the world right now. And it's shallow astrology a lot of the times. I'm not saying she is, but how it proliferates
Yeah.
out into, the memeverse or whatever, social media. Um, but I think any tools for self-awareness are good to have. And no matter what the tool is, whether it's therapy or certain kinds of self-help or, acupressure points or something like this, we live at a time when information is being disseminated through the internet. And so a lot of us are picking up pieces here and there. And, many of us are shallow in our knowledge of certain things. And the knowledge that we have is still helpful a lot
Yeah.
of the time. And there are definitely ways that it can be harmful, to not really have depth with something. And I think the harm happens when we forget to be playful with it and when we get an
Mm.
ego about it and, do the thing that white supremacy culture wants to do, which is to say that I'm right or I know about something. And your friends that you're talking about, like your South Asian friends, might say the same thing that you just said about popular astrology, about, Greek astrology, which is still
Mm.
several thousand years old, but a tradition that I come from, because their tradition is like 9,000 years old, right? Or
Got
16,000 years.
it.
It's like,
Yeah.
so, I think there's a way where culture is always syncretizing. Like there's always some sense of, I don't even know if appropriation is the word, but it's borrowing and it's influencing and it's melding and rippling out and becoming something else. And the fact that astrology is doing that in a big way right now, I think is an asset to human consciousness. And I feel like there's a design in universal consciousness or something like that. And not to anthropomorphize the planets or, imagine that they even give a shit about, us as individuated beings. But there is a way where I feel like they're watching us
Mm.
and they want to help us. And they're like, pay attention, you're part of something bigger. And so, however, we might do that, even if it's just people doing new moon rituals or thinking about the season that they were born as something to identify with and like practice aligning to, that's going to bring them into deeper consciousness of their embeddedness with something that's bigger than them. And for me, that feels useful.
I love that. Thank you for that. Felt like such a beautiful, balanced, kind of perspective of the like, yeah, and both and I thank you for that because my curmudgeon, no self, I don't know where that comes from. Perhaps my chart highlights it somewhere,
Probably.
but there is this aspect of me of like, yes, I want people to use and heal from this, that, all of these things. And I find an ever growing irritation with the as folks identifying as like astrologer or expert or somatic practitioner when there's been like one class because I think there's a part of me that I have been harmed
Totally.
right? Like there's,
Totally.
and I've watched other people come to me, when we spend like time and energy and life force and money and years on the intersections of our craft and the knowingness and the loss related to it and the
Yeah.
growth related to it and the
Yeah.
tears and the on your knees and the
Totally. And when you're devoted to something, and especially when you come
devoted.
from lineages of devotion, to
Yes.
encounter that kind of appropriation and honestly, at times, outright theft and, performativity and
Yeah.
falseness, it's outrageous. It's outraging. And I hear what you're saying and I agree. Like there is a lot of harm that happens. And I'll go back to, I think the harm happens when people stop being curious and stop being playful with it. And
Mhm.
if somebody has encountered astrology and studied it for a year, I hope that that person is out playing with it, and
Yes.
super excited and with their friends and being like, I want to talk to you about your chart. And that they're taking an attitude with it that is continuing to evolve. And inside of, all the isms and capitalist patriarchy and blah, 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 there's such an enormous amount of pressure, to, again, be right about something, think that value certain
Yeah.
types of authority, put yourself out before you're ready, posture. And that's harmful for everybody, probably most deeply the person that's doing it.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think yes, all of this. Yeah, and as this is absorbing and like soaking it all up, I also feel so much compassion because I know I went into my field. It's like this both and, this like, oh, please do more work. It's so, and then I feel this. I know how deeply so many of us want to land and feel like we understand,
Yeah.
and that there's a practice that we can call ours, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's part of the ways that white supremacy is internalized in almost all of us without us. If we're not conscious to it, the ways that we need to own
Hmm.
and wrangle and keep. And I hear you. You keep bringing in this piece around the curiosity and playfulness, and it allows my shoulders to drop.
Hmm.
And it allows me to feel like, oh yeah, I don't have
Hmm.
to take myself or any of this so seriously.
I mean, I think in essence, any practice is going to be its best when it's devotional. And astrology, therapy, art, taking care of plants and animals, whatever it is that somebody does, if they feel themselves being of service to something that's bigger than them, and there is this quality of devotion, to me that is a beloved quality, that's like the ultimate love, that someone can achieve in their life, is to feel like complete devotion to something. And it's so enlivening. And that then it gives the power of what you're doing to the essence of what you're doing, right? And like we try to professionalize something and people become authors, and it's like, oh, this is my method and I've TM'd it and all this stuff. And the essence of what's happening like gets really stifled inside of that,
Yes,
because
yes.
nobody's coming up with anything completely on their own. We're always in intergenerational, intercultural, maybe intergalactic conversation and
Mhm.
collaboration. And if we can let it be that, it's enormous. And what can come through us is deeply profound. But trying to own it, and codify it and formalize it as if it's an object, completely shuts it down. And, as I do astrology, but more and more I think about what I do as divination and intuition practice. And to do divination and to work with intuition, you have to yield. You have to like let
Totally.
go of your mind, let go of your ego. I'm a vessel. Just come through me. Like it's not about me.
Yes. I find that so much easier
Yeah.
than trying to be responsible for or protect frameworks and honor them. Yeah. Yeah. And as somebody who struggles with and has always struggled with and has a trademark, there's always this feeling for me of not wanting it extracted by all the
Hmm.
commodity, like all the levels of whiteness, even if it's not in white bodies, like all the levels of like taking something and just like watering it down until it is no longer
Hmm.
that. And I don't like to walk in fear, but that there is something in that like makes me contract and terrifies me,
Of course.
where I feel like protective of the the original spark.
Of course.
Does that make, I don't know if that makes any sense.
It totally makes sense. I mean, how could you not feel like that inside of the culture that we live in? We live here on stolen land, on Turtle Island. It's like we live inside of a culture that is thieving and stealing all of the time. Like that is the foundation of this culture. And it's so harmful and it leads to mistrust. and stinginess,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this kind of blocked, walled off experience. And I'm betting that when you feel that way, it also limits what you feel that you can give, that it
Mm-hmm.
limits your creative inspiration and your sense of playfulness. And
Mm-hmm.
that's by design.
Yeah.
It's by design that, we're going to get shut off from each other and shut off from our creativity and believe in ownership and objectification.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense. And,
Yeah.
I hear in what you're saying, and I can feel this in myself, like a longing for reciprocity, true reciprocity, because I am a deeply generous person and I want to play with other people and I want to share what I have. And I don't want them to completely trash my space and take what I've given and not give me anything back and then go off and sell it.
Yeah.
That's going to feel terrible, and claim it as their own. That's fucked up. Nobody wants to feel that.
Yeah. 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 And so that balance, since we're not
Mhm.
truly like, this word of community, because I think you do a beautiful job of holding space, and expanding it and contracting it and playing in it. And as you were talking about your Mondays and other places where you teach and try to make it really embodied, for lack of a better word. And by default, I would imagine it is politicized
Mhm.
because we're here with all of us in our bodies. And I feel the same way with my monthly office hours. Like, my acknowledgement is 30 minutes long. We're then dropping into the body. We're then humming and moaning and making feral sounds. And then, yeah, there'll be a little bit of didactic from someone else or myself. And anybody want to share anything? Comes on and plays a ukulele, even though they're like, it's not really good, but here you go. And, or poem, or someone's reading James Baldwin, or someone is telling us a little bit about the astrology in the moment. And I think, oh, this is where I'm home. Like,
Mm,
where all parts of me can unfurl
totally.
and expand and and that feels like a sense of community and containment. But I can't say that I would call these Instagram streets community. Does that make sense?
No.
Like, or like, it's like, what is, and I find that language is used often,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, I don't think, I know me coming from where I'm from, I don't know if other people listening might feel this way too. There is always a constant like hypervigilance
Hmm.
around me and mine as well. And that is
Hmm.
part of what my undoing and breaking up with colonization has been for me.
Hmm.
This whole process of being there
Hmm.
and here, like wanting to constantly move towards a future where there's not a resource grab and like holding close, and where reciprocity feels expansive and
Yeah.
special and abundant. And sometimes those two don't line up for me,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm thinking about, this hierarchy of needs, right? Like Maslow stole it from the Blackfoot Sixon Nation.
Yep.
And in his version, this the base of the triangle is like basic needs, right? The resources that you were just talking about, right? This is what he's saying is at the foundation. And then at the pinnacle of the triangle is self-actualization. But he got it backwards. And in the Blackfoot framework, at the base is self-actualization. It is actually deep belonging. It is a recognition that everybody who's here has something really valuable to give. And when everybody can give what is authentically theirs to give, then we have abundance. And there's resources for everybody. And then that leads to cultural continuity. That leads to there being enough to share and to grow and to continue and to thrive. And I feel like what you're talking about in your monthly gatherings, I feel that also in the embodied astrology spaces. Um, there's so much joy in belonging. There's like such a deep hunger and so much satisfaction that people get to experience when they get to belong to somewhere, to someone's, and to feel seen and witnessed in what it is that they have to bring, whether that's playing the ukulele and practicing with it, or offering some astrology, or doing a tapping practice, or channeling through some kind of wisdom and knowledge. Um, when everybody gets to have their part in that and bring what's authentic to them, wow, what an incredibly robust, exciting, deeply satisfying experience we all get to have. And I don't really think that any of us want to be at the center all the time. That's a distortion of an ego, to always want to be the person in the spotlight, or always want
Mm-hmm.
to be the person who's giving the teaching or something like that. It's deeply exhausting. It leads to weird ego, distortion and fear. It's a really unsustainable type of societal model. And then it requires a lot of rigidity to maintain. But if
Mm-hmm.
people can move in and then move out and give and then receive, that is replenishing. You opened our time together talking about rehydrating, and that's to me what that feels like, is being able to really give and be witnessed and be celebrated, and then also get to step back and reflect and celebrate and appreciate what other people are giving.
It's beautiful. And that, yeah, like plants, like the
Like
land,
plants,
right? Like
exactly.
letting it
Yeah,
rehydrate all that.
exactly.
And I'm going back my brain to something you said around Pisces and Neptune, and this being sort of a new age yet again, an age
Mhm.
of re-welcoming and receiving and the mysticism, and that makes a lot of sense for me.
Mm.
It makes a lot of sense for me in terms of what folks are hungry for and what they're showing up with in their bodies and their expressions. I know myself, sometime around 2012, things really opened up, and I started knowing with a capital K in ways that I couldn't put my hands on, like couldn't quite grasp. And to this day, I'm still feeling this like, this is interesting. More keeps coming in, more floodgates. And I'm hearing that from lots of good people around me, just like my dreams are really wild, or I'm knowing things I didn't know, or I could smell things that aren't there and have this deep sense of what that might be. So I don't know if you would say a little bit more about that, because I'm thinking about how astrology in a really embodied way can be a beautiful tool and a spring form into the fires that many of us are forging, burning, and walking through.
Yeah, so Neptune entered Pisces in 2011. And it actually just departed the other day on January 26th. It moved into Aries.
Peace.
Bye. Um, and it had made an ingress last year, in kind of the middle of the year for a couple of months, and then had retrograded back into Pisces. And Neptune's orbit is 165 years around the sun. And so its entry into Aries as of this week, we're recording on January 30th, harkens us back to a cycle that started with the Civil War. And looking at historic cycles and thinking about cyclical evolution is deeply central to astrology practice, right? And just because something happened the last time doesn't mean that that is what's going to happen exactly the same this time. But, the day that Neptune entered Aries, I was looking at the newspaper headline, and there was a picture of Minneapolis, people in um, gas masks and tear gas, throughout the image. And the headline was Civil War in Minneapolis. And it was talking about the government being at war with the people.
It's people.
Yeah. and it's still the same argument. Like, it's a group of people who think that their lives matter more than anybody else's life, and they should be able to enslave and extract and imprison and kill. And, God chose them or whatever, that delusion is. Um, so yeah, Neptune, as a cultural influence, like we might think about the dreams, like the dream and the longing and the imagination of the times that we're in. And Neptune has been transiting the very last degree of the zodiac. And up until 4 days ago, it was hanging out at the very last degree of the zodiac. And in the classes that I teach on Mondays that end up going out onto the Embodied Astrology podcast, part of it, I kept talking about the end of the world degree. And I was like, it's the end of the world. It's the end of a cycle. And it really is that in a lot of ways. I mean, anybody who's alive right now, we might think about as being part of the same generation, regardless of how old we are.
Okay.
And we're living through times of profound collapse, when institutions and structures and governance that have been maintained and to some degree functional, even in their dysfunction for quite a while, are just completely breaking down. And so one world is dying and another world is being born, or maybe many worlds are being born. There's a interesting practice in tropical astrology or Western astrology called the Sabian symbols, where every degree of the zodiac has its own symbolic meaning. And one of the interpreters of the Sabian symbols, Elias Lonsdale, talks about the very last degree of the zodiac, where Neptune just was, as the earth is pregnant with alternate futures.
Mm.
So many worlds potentially are being born right now. And Neptune's transit through Pisces coincided with Pluto's transit through Capricorn. And a lot of astrologers were talking about, Pluto and Capricorn as being a time when governmental structures really started to visibly rot and decompose. Pluto entered Capricorn with the recession of 2008 and kind of the fall of big banks. And I think since then, the level of corruption in governments has been increasingly obvious. And that's been part of that transit. But for me, as a person who works a lot with people such as yourself, right? Like healers, mystics, queer people, artists, people who are here for cultural healing in a wide, broad kind of sense of the word. What I was noticing is that there was a huge swell of interest in ancient future technologies and ancestral healing practices, which is not to say that any of that is new, but it was a reemergence of a lot of
Yes.
that. And so the Pluto and Capricorn cycle beginning around 2008 brought with it a cultural paradigm that has influenced the world in such a way that where we are now in 2026, there are 1,000,010 books and courses and podcasts on decolonization and ancestral healing and, astrology and all these different kinds of ways of being and knowing and remembering that have evolved inside of our current paradigm, but also really deeply connect us with lineage, with land, with ancestry, and also with potentials of the future.
Mm.
Um, and so,
That's
I think
great. That's great, right?
it's
Like it's
great.
it's
It's
it's a wonderful,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, it's a reason to really feel a lot of hope,
Mm.
and to feel the truth in the idea of, um, I don't know, it's like this Afrofuturist idea, right? That like we're getting messages from our future selves all of the time. And we know something about what we need before we even get to the point where we're going to need it. And we
Mhm.
also have lineages at our back reminding us of what we know inside of ourselves. And they knew what we would need now, and they're reminding us in the future to remind ourselves in the present. And that there's this back and forth echoing across time and this cyclical nature of time, or spiralic nature of time, holographic nature of time, or, something like that, where we exist inside of multitudes. So Neptune has gone into Aries. Pluto has left Capricorn. It's moved into Aquarius. And in May, or end of April in 2026, Uranus, that's been in Taurus since 2018, will move into Gemini, and it will be there for 7 years. And so there's this really interesting arrangement between the outer planets, that's called a minor trine or a talent trine, where Uranus in Gemini is trine with Pluto in Aquarius. They're both air signs, and so they talk to each other really easily. Air blows into air, right? A whisper becomes a wind. And then they're both sextile 60 degrees to Aries, where Neptune is. And so there's this kind of triangle shape between the three of them, these three outer planets. So the outer planets all changing signs at the same time, first and foremost, that's significant. But the
Mm,
fact that they're changing into a configuration that is one of harmony and flow and complementary energy and air and fire, which have to do, the air element symbolically in astrology has a lot to do with intelligence and creative intelligence and the sharing of information and the passing of ideas and consciousness. And consciousness makes the world, right? Like stories make the world. When we have thoughts and we have ideas, then we can manifest them. And fire is the element of catalyzation, right? Like inspiration. This is what moves us into action. So we're alive at a time that, astrologers will be dramatic constantly. Every new moon, every full moon, we're like, oh my God, this thing, that thing, da, da. It's how we stay in business. And and like it's gonna sound dramatic, but like I mean it in a way that I don't mean it most of the time, when I'm talking about a full moon or a new moon or something like that. This is unprecedented.
mm,
And Saturn has been with Neptune in Pisces these last 2.5 years. And in 2 weeks, February 13th, Saturn will also move into Aries. And on February 20th, they are conjunct at the very first degree of the zodiac. And they're talking to Uranus and Pluto in the air signs. Saturn and Neptune conjunctions happen once every 36 years. When you go back in time, we are looking at periods of time where massive shifts in cultural realities were
mm,
happening, like the fall of the Berlin Wall. I think the last time Saturn and Neptune were conjunct was also a period of time when the United States government was interfering in South and Central American governments as well. There are like long-standing generational conversations around capitalism and communism or oil, and nationalization of resources or things like that.
mm.
So here we are in a moment when a lot of cycles are repeating and echoing. Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus in Gemini, when you look back in time, you'll find all kinds of revolutionary eras. Haitian Revolution, American Revolution, French Revolution, all kinds of revolutions throughout Europe and Africa and again, South America. You'll find periods of time also where people are trying to democratize economies, right? And democratize information, where there are big shifts in information technologies, like the development of the printing press or, the internet or something like this. So this is the moment, and there's AI and there's fascists and there's this surveillance state, but there's also, for the first time in history, as far as I know, a global populace that has spent the last few decades becoming rapidly connected with each other and being
Mm.
able to give and receive information. And the fact that, even though Iran has shut down their internet, but it's like we can still see what's happening there. That information is still coming out, right?
Yes.
And even though the fascists here are trying to threaten people and full out murdering them in the streets, execution style, thinking that's going to shut people up and keep them in their houses. That information is circulating widely. People understand their history and they're
Yes.
saying, not again. And it's not everyone, but it's enough people. And when you have critical mass, which is something like 3 to 7% of a populace, change happens rapidly. So I don't know, I'm not in the business of being a predictive astrologer. Again, I prefer to play rather than think that I have the answers. But my colleagues at Embodied Astrology and I, we've been working on a research project for the last couple of years. And one of the things that we're looking at right now is the way that, the Heritage Foundation is putting out their plan for the next 250 years of Christian fundamentalist oppression. Let's take it right into the Margaret Atwood of it all.
Hmm.
This is their plan. And these are folks that, I don't know what they're working with, but I know that they're also working with astrology. And astrology is a technology that anybody can use. And it has been used, especially in Western culture, the Greeks, the Romans, the Catholics, like it has been used in ways to support oppression. It has been written and interpreted by men for kings, in order to dominate. And it also is a technology that more and more queer people and radicals and revolutionaries and artists are working with also and again, because I think we were always there working with it and developing it. So yeah, I mean, I think that we can look at these planetary cycles and consider what we see being mapped out in certain, corners or echelons of society and governance, and devise our own meaning around that. Like we can get curious about like, well, what are their strategies? What are their techniques? And then play with it on our own terms also, and
Mm.
who knows? My opinion is that the universe has a design that's bigger than any of us can really conceive of
Mhm.
and certainly control. But
Mhm.
I think that we can participate with it. And astrology is a way that we can do that.
It's a magnanimous way that we can do that. It just feels like there's so many um, inlays, ways in, trailheads, where
Yeah.
we can look at the mirror of ourselves and the collective, it appears, both
Hmm.
and I don't know so many beautiful philosophies, practices, disciplines, that allow for that both and in such a fluid accordion like way, which is I have just such a deep appreciation. And I laugh at myself often where I'm like, oh, okay, my this and this person that. That's why that does it. And then I laugh and then I'm like, no, let me invite this person into this funny discussion in my mind and talk like
Totally.
we started out talking about when you were little, maybe, you're fixed and I could see all my fixedness and all the places that I need more people in my life to play. And those are the ones that usually press my buttons initially. And then I'm
Right.
like, okay, okay, here's my
Right.
belly.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, in chart interpretation, there's this language around aspects, and the language is hard and soft. So there are hard aspects like a square or an opposition, and soft aspects like a trine or a sextile. And a lot of people do what people like to do, which is make one bad and the other good. And so people will be like, hard aspects are bad because they're hard, right? And soft aspects are good because they're easy, which is not at all the case all the time. Soft aspects can certainly bring ease and flow and opportunity and good luck. And they can be really slippery to work with. They can be unmitigated and unfiltered. They can be a kind of lazy energy where we can't find our will, to counter something. And hard
Yeah.
aspects, the squares and the oppositions, they can be hard. They're challenging. There's conflict there. There's actual difference. But that's where creativity comes in. That's actually where the dynamism of the chart is. And so if you have all soft aspects and no hard aspects, not much is going to happen. And so that, that friction, right? Like that sense of,
Oh.
ooh, you're pressing my buttons. That's dynamic growth. That's an evolutionary opportunity.
Yes, I love that. An evolutionary opportunity that
That's
you're
right.
Yeah, I
That's
spent
right.
majority of my life feeling like once I started to understand and have readings from some badass folks that like it's not just like what it seems like in a one liner, like Saturn. Oh, okay. But like deeper. But when I started looking, like Saturn, I think is in my 12th with Leo. And
Mm,
then I think that, oh, what is that word? Sorry, Renee, like where it also deeply impacts my first house and all of that Virgo. What is that aspect? Or no?
hmm.
Trine, maybe, something like that. But I often felt and can still feel that like dang, why did that have to be there? And then
Mm,
now I've started asking questions and taking a breath and expanding into it and saying, wow, thank you for teaching me
mm,
what it feels like to be so hard on yourself
mm,
so that I can start being less like that with others, less like that with myself, and that visibility is always going to be a little bit of a struggle and a push for me. Both and.
mm,
Does that make, I don't know if that makes any sense, but like
mm.
a both a like this is part of what you're here, your makeup is to have visibility. Cause even when I want to shrink, it's like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, you back there. Hi. Yeah. Like, what do you,
right.
like, I feel like I'm always stirring a space where whatever I am. And I think there's something about that Saturn there. And I know I'm not saying this in the best astrological way, but there's something about that Saturn in there with the Leo for me that I feel that extra fixed energy.
Mm,
But I'm
mm,
starting to also ask myself like, what do we need in this moment to
mm,
soften? What do we need in this moment to like unfurl a little bit? And I'm allowing my knowledge of my past lifetimes and
hmm.
how beheadings and crucifixions and like coming after me, how that the visibility as well as culturally, how it's also very real.
Yeah,
And it alerts me to also what's possible and what to keep an eye on.
yeah.
I don't know if that made any sense at all, but that's,
I don't have your chart up in front of me and I don't remember it to that detail, but what I am hearing and what you're saying is something that I hear from a lot of people, which is gosh, why do I have to have this?
yeah,
And I have
yeah.
those types of things in my own chart as well. Um, and yeah, I guess that I think that's deeply on some level a part of a human experience
Mm,
and also again a gift of astrology, where we can see that there are things that contextualize an experience for us, and knowing that you have these placements that contextualizes the way that you might be vigilant or mistrusting or guarded in your own being, right? Or have some kind of vibrational residue to experiences that are beyond this life. Like being able to see a symbol of that also then opens up all kinds of different ways to work with it. And it takes it out of the abstract and it kind of depersonalizes it in some way, even though it's deeply personal, it is your chart. There's also this way where it's like, well, that's not me, it's Saturn, right? It's like Saturn in me, right? That I think is such a generous gift that we can give to ourselves.
mm,
And yeah, like there's no such thing as a perfect chart. There's no such thing as a perfect person. Like there's no such thing as a perfect life.
yeah.
And I think having looked now at like thousands of charts, like maybe tens of thousands of charts, I don't even know how many charts I've encountered. I deeply, deeply feel and believe at the core of my being that everybody's chart and everybody's life and everybody's body is is the exact right spiritual path for them.
Mm.
Like your spirit has incarnated into exactly the right time, place, and form for you to experience whatever it is that you're here to experience. And there's choices within that. There's the fate of, yeah, you probably, at least not to some extent that you can remember, didn't choose your family or the time that you were born or so. It's like, here you are, this is your fate. This is your lot in life. But then there's the fortune that we get to make for ourselves by awakening to our own purposefulness.
Yes.
And for me, like having that consciousness of, oh, I have Saturn in Leo in the 12th, that's a huge awakening opportunity, and that helps you potentially rise to your own occasion.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think a lot of us, anybody listening is probably like, oh, yeah, I have a few of those crunchy, cute little parts in my chart too.
That's what makes you perfect. It's like imperfect perfection, right? Like if you didn't have that, you'd be friggin' boring.
Yeah, word.
These ideas of like the perfect person, the perfect life, like there's nothing there. Like you started off us talking about the marrow. It's like there's no marrow in that. That's a hollow fantasy.
It is. And not one. I'm preferring new, cooler fantasies these days, right? One in which my full self get to
Yes,
show up and other people's full selves get to show up messy and crusty and cute. All of it.
totally. All of it. All
All of
of it.
it. All of it. Renee, I think I have many questions and we could probably be on for many, many, many hours. You are truly brilliant, and I encourage anybody listening that felt a lot of what I felt and any movements, any like clutching of your pearls, to please check out the collective that is Embodied Astrology and Renee and the collective's work and the ways that they bring a very embodied, politicized, fluid, expansive understanding of astrology and somatics, I would dare say. But please tell us what are the best ways folks can find you? How would you like them most to enter into your waters? And anything else that would be great for us to know.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Okay, the best places to find me are on whatever platforms you stream your podcasts. Also on YouTube. I put out season ahead horoscopes every month at the beginning of each new zodiac season. So it's usually around the 20th of the month. And those are free mini readings for all 12 signs. They're usually about half an hour each. If you like those, I do year aheads for all 12 signs that are significantly longer and really go through the year. And then I teach on moon days, every moon day on Zoom. And if you want to drop into somatic space, you can do that just as a one-time drop-in, or you can join the membership. And if you join the membership, you get access to the Zoom classes, to the recording archive, and then you also get access to our weekly study groups. And we have chart reading study groups that happen where people come together to talk about their lives and talk about their charts and really learn astrology through their own experiences. My colleague Alicia Mauji facilitates those spaces currently, and they are deeply beloved. And people have built absolutely incredible friendships and really, I think, very lasting relationships there. And over the last 5 years, Embodied Astrology has been becoming a collective, and something is happening behind the scenes right now. It's a very exciting time for us. We're in a chrysalis stage, but there's about 20 of us, people who I've worked with anywhere from about 2 to maybe 7 or 8 years. They've gone through my practitioner program. They are my colleagues. They've been facilitators at Embodied Astrology. And we are working on building out a practitioner's space. And
Beautiful.
hopefully by mid-year, but definitely by the end of the year, we're going to start to be more visible in what that offering is. But we have the first of these new offerings starting on February 20th, which is the day that Saturn and Neptune are conjunct, and my colleague Aziz Bisans and I will be leading a workshop that day. And Aziz will then continue with a monthly series working with Neptune in Aries. And Aziz is a somatic therapist and astrologer, as well as an activist and artist. They're Lebanese American based in Minneapolis and actually have been really active in organizing the Swana community around grief and rage circles and healing spaces there,
Beautiful.
and bringing in astrology. And then, yeah, throughout the year, I don't yet know all the things that we're going to be doing, but there's a lot that's coming up, and I'll be starting a new practitioner program, probably around Virgo or Libra season, so September equinox-ish. And I'm sure there's more, but all of our information is at embodiedastrology.com. And I kind of post on Instagram, but have pretty much disengaged with that platform. So the best place to find us is through our website and our newsletter and podcast.
Beautiful. Please trot, saunter, skip, run if it's your jam.
Definitely
over.
skip. I'm a fan of skipping.
Me too.
It's so fun. And it's fast. I was like, this is actually, I feel like it's faster than running for me.
I would agree with you. Me too. Because I'll just get tired faster with running anyway. Anyway.
Right?
But please skip on over to Embodied Astrology. You saying this is also reminding me, I think I would like to join the Monday sessions.
I forgot something.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have we actually have a studio partnership starting in New Jersey, close to where I saw you in 2024. I don't know where because I'm not familiar with the area.
Yeah.
That
That was
but there
Jersey City.
is, yes, Jersey City. There's a studio called Soul Therapy Studios. Uh, and it is an awesome studio. They have all different kinds of movement and healing offerings. And they are going to start live streaming Somatic Space on Mondays to an in-person group. So if you're interested in doing the Somatic Space practice, but also being in community and you're in that area, you can do it there.
Amazing. Please do. We will have all of this information in the show notes, y'all. Everything that we could possibly bring together, everything that Renee gives us, we'll put into the show notes. Please, please, please consider signing up for the newsletter. Like many of us, we're seeking to divest from certain places, spaces, and systems. I know Dr. Jen certainly is, and my posse. Lately, I've just been calling my collective my posse. I don't know why. I'm going back to my like 8th grade roots. So yeah. So and I would have to say that embodied astrology and talking to you, Renee, the times that we do have had me really thinking about how like I don't like doing all of this by myself, and I'm not the only person that could or should. And what does it look like to, to just expand into all of this? And yeah, please find us, sign up to our newsletters, whether that's Decolonizing Therapy, Embodied Astrology, any other folks that you love and enjoy, so that way you can keep in contact with us should some of these systems and tools of white body supremacy and grossness decide to shut down any of our spaces. And anyway, it's really controlling and it doesn't feel good and it's pretty violent.
And it's
And I
colonizing
also,
our minds.
yes, that's a whole other podcast episode. I really feel like there's something there with it psychically, physically, literally, all of it. I don't like it. So please, please, please sign up to our newsletters. These are ways to still keep in contact, say what's up, drop in or join up into any and all of our memberships and spaces in a way and a capacity that feels good for you, your body, your resources, and your time. Renee, thank you. Is there anything you want to leave us with? Anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you, Dr. Jen. It's not frequent enough that we get to see each other and talk. And I just have so much respect and admiration for what you're doing in the world and the energy that you're bringing into the spaces that you're in. And thanks for bringing me onto your podcast. I'm just very honored to be part of the constellation that you've woven together in these episodes.
Thank you. We appreciate you, and you are just a gift, truly such a gift. Thank you for being, and thank you for being spirit fam, soul fam. I deeply see you and appreciate you. And I hope everybody listening, watching, feeling, vibing, driving, breastfeeding, whatever you're doing, whatever you're doing in this moment, that you feel full and you have a little smile or smirk on your face, and you'll go drink a big old glass of water and say to yourself, I really fucking appreciated that episode. Thanks. And energetically give a hug back to Renee. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And again, to everybody, we'll never again be in this place, space, time, moment, energy again. So just take a moment, a second to appreciate who is around you, and your beautiful breathing lungs, your belly, your diaphragm, your throat. Be in your body as best you can be. And thank you for showing up. And hit subscribe, like, throw us a comment. We appreciate the feedback. From Root to Bone is a podcast from Decolonizing Therapy. It is hosted by me, Dr. Jen Mullen. Our producer is Tribble at Ash Tribble Incorporated. Original music by Laura Burke, and cover art by Madre Shell. Don't forget to find us on Instagram at Decolonizing Therapy, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Decolonizing Therapy, for the full video version of each episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your people and leave us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps people find us. For more info about Decolonizing Therapy, visit our website, www.decolonizingtherapy.com. Be well.